Yesterday, I stopped about halfway through my time in Malaysia. From Penang, I went to Kuala Lumpur, where I was with another nonprofit that's not particularly religious. It's called the All Women's Action Society of Malaysia, and they're part of a coalition of NGOs that work toward gender equality and all have slightly different things that they do. Like one of their sort of sister organizations is called Sisters in Islam. So they work closely together. And AWAM, as the acronym ends up, they give a lot of important services in the office. They do free legal aid and free counseling. And so they help a lot of people who are suffering from situations that are domestic violence or having to deal with divorce going through the Sharia courts and things like that. And this is another example of an office being a safe space in a really amazing way. First, I was caught off guard because to go into the office, there's a big sort of metal gate and the door, and you ring a bell, and then they come and check and say, "Do you have an appointment? Who's it with?" And then the door closes, and they go and check and then come back. Because of their work, they've sometimes had angry people feeling that wives have been helped to escape and have come to the office. And so now the office is a little bit barricaded, but once you're inside, it's really just wonderful, and a very supportive staff, and some people working there just have space for different aspects of their identity that they really don't find anywhere else. And so that was sort of why I really appreciated my time with Awam, and also being around so many activists. And I was living with a really incredible activist who taught me a lot and how she thinks about, I was explaining sort of monastic views as you're becoming the self that can best help all beings. Like that's what the work is about. And Ma suggests that sometimes activists try to go about it the other way. You throw yourself into work out in the world, hoping that then the internal spaces will feel better also. And if you don't have the sort of balancing, grounding internal work, you can see a lot of burnout. If it's just a lot of anger fueling you, it's gonna see some burnout. Then I left Malaysia and was very sad to go. It's a really remarkable place. And I always miss hearing the azan, the call to prayer. I could always hear that early in the morning. But I went to Thailand, and I went first to Wat Song Dhamma Kalyani, where Venerable Dhammananda is the abbess. She's actually the third generation in her family of sort of head monastic women, because her grandmother was a white-robed Mechi and was a sort of teacher and leader among Mechis, and then her mother was the first Thai woman to take Bhikkhuni ordination in the Chinese tradition, and Venerable Dhammananda was the first Thai woman to take ordination in a Theravada tradition. So the monastics from her monastery go to Sri Lanka to take full Bhikkhuni ordination. And I think this was definitely my first Theravada monastery and first time Theravada practice, and chanting in Pali, and Pali is such a beautiful language, and I really loved the chants from the sutras, and it was a really wonderful place. And also started to get a glimpse of, because women's ordination is so controversial in Thailand, Venerable Dhammananda really tries to prepare all of the monastics for that they might be questioned at any time about the sort of validity of the Bhikkhuni lineage, and if there even can be Bhikkhunis. That sort of monastic tokenism is how I thought of it, because anyone in Thailand, you're seeing bhikkhus, you're seeing male monks all the time. So anything that one is doing won't be quite as significant because you'll see so many others. Whereas a bhikkhuni, that might be the only bhikkhuni you've ever seen. And And so the stakes are very high. And so their behavior needs to be really, really correct. They need to sort of get everything right, and they need to be prepared for whatever questions people might be throwing at them, and they need to be ready with the sort of historical and scriptural basis for the Bhikkhuni lineage. So that was interesting to think about sort of that pressure, and while they can't just be sort of focused on their practice, they also have to realize that the government doesn't recognize them, and they've done a really amazing job in this gradual establishing themselves in the community and going out on the traditional alms round twice a week. And the temple is vegetarian, which is quite unusual in Thailand. And so Venerable Dhammananda has done an amazing job of sort of gradually getting the community to understand that practice, but without sort of getting into a battle with the monks about what the first precept meant in terms of vegetarianism, because she's fighting enough battles with the Bhikkhu Sangha. We'll leave that one for another time. And so now they're 2 days a week going out on alms round, which was one of my favorite things about being there. I think I would get too excited about it. Morning meditation, then you could see the bhikkhunis who would go on the alms round had the third piece of the robes, had sort of belt here, and so I would see that when they came in, because it wasn't always the same days of the week. Alms round today! It's like, calm down, okay. But it's a really beautiful sight, sort of walking silently at 6 in the morning, and the sun comes up, and just this really traditional, the orange-robed bhikkhunis walking with their alms bowls. And that was something I really loved about that practice and being there.
How do they deal with alms and being vegetarian? Do everybody know to give them vegetarian food, or do they just accept what they are given?
Now everyone on the routes, they have a route that's on Sundays, and then one that's on the Wanpra day, or sort of the midweek. And because I asked about this, because it really, outside of the temple, it's hard to find vegetarian food in Thailand. And so I asked, and Venerable Dhammananda said that before she started this practice, people went around with flyers sort of explaining, like little notes like, Venerable Dhammananda will come through an alms round, she's vegetarian. Please, like whatever you offer, please make sure it's vegetarian. And at first, they only went 1 day a week and had one route that they walked. And then another group of houses in town started, I guess they were hearing that the blessing that the monastics would give was very good. And then it was a very good thing to give them dana. So they said, we want to be included too. So that's how they started a second route. Yes, there was sort of notice ahead of time to please not offer meat.
Westerners there, and how was the approach to ordination? Did people just walk in and ordain, or a little bit more about how they do it?
There was a Westerner there the first day I was there. It was one of 2 times I think where there was another Westerner at one of the temples I was at, and that was really helpful to have her show me the ropes. And she was actually going to meet with IWP also, which is how I found out why they dropped off the map. But I was there just after a temporary ordination, which is a tradition they do twice a year in December. I think it's December 5th in honor of the late king's birthday, and then in April to honor Venerable Dhammananda's mother's birthday, I think. So women can come and take, typically it's temporary, it's ceremonial or ordination for 10 days. And they do all the practices, learn as much etiquette as you can in 10 days, and learn about the Bhikkhuni lineage and basic Buddhist teachings. And then at the end of the 10 days, they can choose to stay longer or can choose to disrobe. And many of the women had families, had children. And so we're going back, but quite a few were still there when I arrived, which was a couple of weeks later, and had chosen to stay longer. Some I think were thinking about staying on and pursuing their ordination further. And others just, one had transitioned back to keeping the 8 precepts and being with the laywomen. She clearly just really loved the temple and wanted to support it, but wasn't quite ready to take ordination, but was certainly considering it, and just really was a sort of important part of the temple, and wanting to support what they were doing. Others, there was sort of a wall that had many different panels. We were painting Dharma sayings in Thai and in English. And so one of the women who had temporarily ordained, she was doing the Thai lettering. And so she was going to stay until she finished all the panels on the wall. It was funny because I couldn't tell when I arrived because everyone was in the same robes. I couldn't tell who was temporarily ordained and who was a part of the community. So some more permanently. So seminary. And let's see, then there are a couple Sikamanas there, and so I think that's a 2-year. Right? So you have a year as a seminary, 2 years as Sikamana, and then you can pursue your Bhikkhuni ordination, arranging to go to Sri Lanka. And when I arrived, 2 new Bhikkhunis had just come back from Sri Lanka and had just received their ordination. So the first alms round I went on was New Year's Day, actually, and they got to tell the community, each house we went to on alms round, that I'm a Bhikkhuni now. And thinking, because so much of the time it's lay women who are giving the alms, and I was thinking a lot of these older women who are there to give dana, and they take their shoes off and kneel in the street in their socks, and like so many of these women, could they ever have imagined they would see the Bhikkhuni Sangha in their lifetime? But here they are. Then I'd had plans to spend time with a particular nonprofit in Thailand. For a while I couldn't find them. It seemed they'd dropped off the earth and I couldn't get in touch with them. It was January of 2016. I'd been in touch with them in August of 2015, and since then, and where did they go? And this is a group called International Women's Partnership for Peace and Justice. And they're really, really wonderful, and they do a lot of trainings and workshops drawing on Buddhist teachings for social transformation and activism, while also giving activists the sort of tools and space to reconnect to spiritual practice and giving them a refuge as they need it. I think one of their courses is Buddhist Education for Social Transformation, which the acronym is BEST, and so it's the best course. But I didn't realize, and that's how people who have taken it talk about it, it is the best course. But it's actually founded by 2 women, and they still run it, and just really remarkable teachers and practitioners. But so it sort of made sense when I was trying to contact them. There are only 2 of them, so they sort of were taking a break. But then I got back in touch with Waypoint and Ginger, and they said, a lot of the stuff they're dealing with in their workshops and can be pretty personal. They don't have observers there, but they said I could take part in whatever was happening when I got to that part of Thailand, which turned out to be a women's natural building course, which I did not see coming and was the most unexpected and wonderful thing I could have added to my year, which was starting from making mud bricks. We were building really the kitchen and the pantry onto the building that the last course had done. So it was also just a lot of fun. I was being outside all day, in the mud all day, in the mountains of northwest Thailand. And they love these courses because they do other women's empowerment type courses, but this one you don't even have to talk about it. You don't have to bring it up, because in just doing the work together, and these group of women from all over the world, it happened. So, oh, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I could be making bricks and laying bricks and putting on the plaster, and I didn't know I could handle roofing and windows and lintels and all of that. was just really amazing, and that's part of why their center is so special. They've built all the buildings themselves, and the meditation hall is this beautiful earthen building around, just very sort of warm and comforting and close to the land. And where we were building will actually be a retreat center for activists and anyone else who needs it. So I was just really lucky to be a part of this thing that I never saw coming. And then I got really excited. I was like, oh, this is what I need to do. I need to start building mud houses in Oregon. But maybe we'll leave that for another time. The last group I spent time with, which was actually just before that, as I was waiting for IWP to reappear, I went to a home for single mothers run by the Sisters of the Good Shepherd. So it's my first sort of experience around Catholic sisters, but most of the women there are from the indigenous communities in the sort of northern hills of Thailand. So all of those women pretty much will be Buddhist or the sort of local indigenous religions. And the sisters there don't even try to get them to come to Mass. There's really no effort to convert them or anything, which I really appreciated. The day that Mass was happening, I sort of noticed, like, all the mothers seem to be going about their normal tasks. Isn't it Mass right now? Won't we go? And I asked the sister once, she's like, oh, no, they're mostly Buddhist. Like, and I appreciated that. They're welcome to come if they want to. They don't have to. And it was just this amazing space. I mean, I like being around little kids, and we were doing all sorts of things. They have organic gardens and repainting houses and all these different tasks that I like doing. But it took me days to figure out whose children were whose, because all of the mothers are so affectionate and caring with all of the kids. And at any time, if a child needs something, there's someone there. And it doesn't have to be their mother. And you could tell when I arrived, all of the kids immediately were like, oh, you're definitely a friend. You're definitely going to want to play all these games. Oh, that's because all of the adults around here are, caring and supportive to you. And so that was a wonderful thing. And it's also one of my favorite sort of interfaith partnerships. So that this home run by Catholic sisters actually had sort of a partnership with a local Buddhist temple where there were only a couple of monks, but they still received so much food and dana. They received so many offerings. And so some of the mothers would come and take out the extra food and do a little cleaning around the temple and help out, because the monks were older, and it did seem a little odd that there weren't, the community did not support the mothers directly, but that the monks would make that possible and sort of redistribute so that everyone had the resources they needed. That was my time in Thailand. I leave there today.